This is the thing that needs to be attacked, not Jewish people. No, it is the Christian Zionist movement that is built up and unleashed this behemoth that has untold and unchecked power. Yeah, so this was a very interesting exchange between Mike Huckabee and Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is asking many of the right questions and getting at the heart of the disproportionate power that Israel has with regards to the American government. And it is alarming that a foreign government would have so much power and so much pull over the most powerful government in the entire world. Especially if I were an American, I would be alarmed by that. I would feel like my country had more or less been infiltrated and taken over, perhaps in a manner similar to the Scrolls, if you're familiar with the work of Martin Jack Kirby. So that is a good point, and I think that this illustrates what is the problem here. The problem is not international Jewry, because there is only 16 million Jews worldwide. It really doesn't matter how wealthy of a group you have, and let's be honest, the vast majority of Jews are not wealthy. The wealthy Jews are a minority within their group. So the idea that Jews have sort of taken over in all of this is clearly nonsense. It just demonstrably cannot be true that Jews have this much power. But the Israeli government does have an extraordinary amount of power with regards to dictating what Uncle Sam does and doesn't do. And why is this? This is because of people like Mike Huckabee. The Christian Zionist movement, which I would argue is really an anti-Semitic movement, if you think about it, because they support Israel, yes, but they do not support Jews as they are. They have a mandate to convert the Jewish people, to make them part of their Christian flock, if you will. The Christian Zionist movement is the reason why a small government like Israel is able to enjoy so much power when it comes to the US government. That is what really needs to be tackled here. Not talk about anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and all of this sort of nonsense. It is to do with the Protestant evangelical perversion that has happened more or less since the tent revival type sort of scene came about. So that's the first thing. The other thing as well is that Tucker Carlson questioned him because Mike Huckabee said they have a claim to the land, an ancestral claim. Well, if you're going to say that, that cuts not just both ways, that cuts in every direction possible. The foundation of your nation is stolen land. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. In fact, there was a time, you can read about it, when at least some Americans were proud of that and championed this. There is a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in which he talks about the disappearing red man and how it's a good thing because we came on the scene and we more or less erased him. So they were gloating about this. And yet today we don't see that same level of gloating, do we? And so if Mike Huckabee is to make that claim, again, like I said, that cuts in every direction possible. Now, when it comes to Tucker Carlson questioning the ancestry of Bibi Netanyahu, I get uncomfortable. And I get uncomfortable because of this. Number one, scholarship should not be weaponized. Whatever the truth is the truth. we shouldn't weaponize it. That is my first contention. So here's an example. Where I'm from, Aotearoa, there is a BS lunatic theory that Celtics were in Aotearoa before Māori. Even if it were true, which it's not, it's total bunk, it couldn't be true. That's the problem with that theory. It could not be true. And the nature of the theory says so. The fact of the matter is that a wrong was done to the Māori people. Colonization is real. And so therefore, to use some sort of pre-Māori civilization to negate the legitimate grievances that Māori do have is slimy. And so I don't like to undermine or use scholarship. No. That said, the debate around Semitic origins is a legitimate debate, and the scholarly position that the Ashkenazi Jews, at least, more or less Germans, they are descended from a group of Germans within the Rhineland that came to believe, due to contact with Christianity, that they themselves are the Second Temple Jews, or at least descended from the Second Temple Jews, is a legitimate scholarly position to hold to. It is one that I personally lean towards. But even if that's true or not, the fact of the matter is that there is a state of Israel. And we cannot use scholarship to undermine the existence of something that already exists. It exists. There's nothing you can do about it. So how do we move forward? That's my other point. The scholarship should be separate to the politics, is what I'm saying. So that's the point that I was uncomfortable with. But what I think that he should have leaned into is this. Whether or not you have an ancestral claim to land does not entitle you to kill 100,000 people in the space of less than 2 years, and to use the example of the 6 million as some sort of excuse, some sort of bludgeon. We wonder why denial of the Holocaust is on the rise. We wonder why people are becoming sympathetic to the mustache man. It is because, if we are honest, the Holocaust has long been used as a bludgeon by which to silence legitimate criticism of Israel. And the fact of the matter is you do not get to go around killing people and get off scot-free. You don't get to kill 100,000 people, mostly civilians, a large of them children, a large percentage of them children. 1 in 5 Gazans have died because of what's happened. You don't get to do that and then turn around and have some sort of moral high ground. The numbers speak for themselves. Bibi Netanyahu never intended to rescue the 7th of October hostages that were taken. That was never the game plan here. The game plan was always to destroy Hamas at a terrible, terrible cost to the civilian population of Gaza. And you don't get to do that because an Israeli soldier is not worth more than a Palestinian civilian. International law dictates that civilians are worth more than soldiers. It doesn't matter what side of the war that civilian was on. Civilians are neutral parties in a war, and if Israel wants to be taken seriously as a state and as a democracy, then she has to be held accountable for what she has done. And what has happened in the last 2 years is absolutely horrendous. The Christian Zionist movement have betrayed everything that they claim to profess. These are the people that oppose abortion, for example. What of the babies of Palestinians? What of them? These are people who talk about family values. What of the families of Palestinians? The Christian Zionists have created Israel as it currently exists. They have done more to contribute towards the genocide of IDF than any Yahtzee has ever done. Ever. Think about it. This was not the case. Look at the conduct of Israel in this war and compared with the conduct of Israel in the 6-Day War. Totally different. One, for the most part, in full compliance with international law. This blatant disregard for international law. The conduct is totally different, and yet the generation of the time were the most closest to the events of the Nazi Holocaust. This shows that the Christian Zionist movement has done more to cause the moral rot of Israel than any Yahtzee ever could. Think about that. And that is the point that I think Tucker Carlson should have leaned into, should have attacked, is how much the Christian Zionists have empowered these people. Mike Huckabee said he would be fine with them taking all of the land of Greater Israel. And do you feel the same about the Cherokee? Does he feel the same about the Apache taking the land? Whose claim to the land, I might add, is not as tenuous as that of the Jew. Because, at least with certain Jewish groups, we don't know their origins. We don't know if they actually descend from the Second Temple. We know that Apaches today are the people descended from the warriors of Geronimo and so on and so forth. That is not the case, and Mike Huckabee is inconsistent. This reminds me of a time when I was questioning a bunch of Christian Zionists. This was in New Zealand, and they said, yes, but the Jews were there first. And I said, well, by that logic, you ought to get out of your home, because my people were here first. If we're going to play that game, we can play that game, but you, white man, will lose if you're going to play that game. So again, this is the thing that needs to be attacked, not Jewish people. No, it is the Christian Zionist movement that has built up and unleashed this behemoth that has untold and unchecked power.